touch of social innovation by helping people by providing a low-cost product which is innovative enough to meet the basic needs of, most of the times you can say, bottom of the pyramid, and it provides a care service literally towards people who can't afford a regular procedure.
True. Okay, so let's quickly go through this, and then I come back to Jaipur for a moment. So, if you look at it, this is what the definition is. Application of a new idea or a new application of an existing idea that yields lasting social value. What is the social value here? The fact is that you are not able to address people in any developing or what used to be called underdeveloped countries with the cost structure of Osur or whoever that company is, or any other solution available in advanced economies. So it has to, it's lasting social value. It's been around now how many years already? More than a few decades? So obviously the difference between the two costs is so huge, and the people who are asking for this service have so little to give that there is this possibility to give. And unfortunately, when we talk of branding or whatever and sustainability, and that's why the group had to resort to international recovery of cost, that within India it's become a free product. Almost virtually it's a free product. You just walk in, you get help. That's the image that they've created. So now to ask money is almost blasphemy. Alright, so I'll come back to that. Now, who are the social innovation people? So if you look at, there are three terminologies that we are loosely using. One is social innovation, one is social entrepreneurship, and one is social enterprise. Okay? Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel laureate, is a social entrepreneur, but the organization he created, Grameen Bank, among many other organizations like Grameen Phone, etc., is a social enterprise. Yeah? And so therefore that's the connection. Self-administered community-based microfinance is a social innovation. More on that, I'll come back to that. So this is a four-step process: generation of ideas, developing ideas, assessing ideas, learning and evolving. Didn't we see all these four in Jaipur? This was generated by who? An artisan, Ram Kumar, that was the name. Very simple name. Somebody who had no access to the world, just went and like a kind of hobby in a garage prepared this. Right? So that was the generation of the idea. How did the idea develop? How did the idea develop? You heard it, so the group knows it, but others also. How did the idea develop? This was somebody who did something in a garage. How did it go to the development stage? That also was said by the group. There was the name of a guy. You guys said it. What was the name? D.R. Mehta. That guy developed this. He saw an opportunity. He came from, or he comes from Rajasthan. He had a great affinity. He discovered this almost. And he added his own personal stamp to it. You didn't explain who D.R. Mehta was. Who is D.R. Mehta? Why is it significant? Deputy Governor for RBI. More importantly, he was the chairman of SEBI. SEBI is the Securities and Exchange Board of India, the people who govern the markets. If you have looked at the Indian economy, people have made lots of money in the share and stock and mutual fund markets. The people who regulated that, and that's something that came into being around 1990, if I'm not wrong, take 1 or 2 years, I don't remember which year, and D.R. Mehta was very soon the head of that organization. If you walked into, and that's the connection I have with this case, I knew D.R. Mehta well. I didn't know him for Jaipur Foot. I knew an executive director of SEBI, very intimately, he's a very good friend of mine. And for that reason, I used to drop into the SEBI office very frequently to look him up. And I got introduced to Dr. Mehta. The moment you meet Dr. Mehta in his office in SEBI, what would he talk about? Not banking. See, do remember that, or not even, stock markets or mutual funds. He knew, even in my corporate life, I had nothing to do with, let's say, with stock markets and mutual funds. I had not even invested a single paisa in the stock market. So, the entire time we would meet, he would discuss Jaipur food. I've traveled with Dr. Mehta in a car in Bombay. And typically the SEBI office was in South Bombay, Nariman Point. So if you came down Marine Drive, the car would stop at a signal. Beggars knew Dr. Mehta, and Dr. Mehta knew every beggar. So they would come, there would be designated someone, there would be, for a long halt, there would be a chat. There would be, in fact, a conversation. And if you walked into Dr. Mehta's office, you better give something before you walk out. So in fact, all corporate chieftains, and to protect their own interest in the growth of the stock market, mutual fund market, whatever, for them it was a pittance to contribute something to Jaipur food. So now when you talk about the sustenance of the model, you realize that in its formative years, who sustained it? It was sustained from SEBI office in Nariman Point. As simple as that. Millions of rupees flowing in for what? That, DM, and of course he didn't link it with the favor. And the government really didn't take up cudgels against him. But I have seen, I've traveled with him in the same car. He knew the beggar and the beggar knew him. I've not gone to Jaipur food, that's another story. But the guy intimately related with the poor. And this was something that he was extremely, extremely passionate about. In fact, even when he retired from SEBI, that's what he went back to. And with his huge clout as Deputy Governor of Reserve Bank and Chairman of SEBI, in fact, he was one of the most iconic Chairman of SEBI. In his tenure, SEBI grew to, great, to the strengths that it had. So, SEBI was in the news every day. People were making money. It was good news all over. And Dr. Mehta was behind it. The name, fame, whatever, and you walk in, you're, a mutual fund, you were a brokerage or whatever. Go to his office, come back, sign a check, Jaipur food, that's it. Today, when that era is over, obviously, they are looking for funds. So this is the developing of the idea. Now what is happening next is the assessing. What is that? That is where ISRO comes in, that's where South Korea comes in. How do you improve things? How do you tie up? How do you, and then learning and evolving. That's happening. Okay? Alright. So these are some of the examples of social innovations. Tomorrow we'll have one, fair trade. You learn about that, you'll present that. So basically, catalytic innovators have shared 5 qualities. They create systemic social change through scaling and replication. Then scaling and replication. Remember that, I'll come back to that. They meet a need that is either overserved because the existing solution is more complex than many people require, or not served at all. Alright? They offer products and services that are simpler and less costly than existing alternatives. You can see this. And may be perceived as having a lower level of performance, but users consider them to be good enough. So that's it. That's your answer. Why is this preferred to the prosthetics elsewhere? Because of that. They generate resources such as donations. There comes Dr. Mehta. Grants the government gave. Volunteer manpower or intellectual capital, ways that are initially unattractive to incumbent competitors. They are often ignored, disparaged, encouraged by existing players for whom the business model is unprofitable or otherwise unattractive and who therefore avoid or retreat from the market segment. So what do they have in common? Innovation, entrepreneurship, and scale. Alright? And this is the ecosystem of innovation there, of social innovation. And therefore, it's innovation plus relevance, that's the impact. Alright? So what you do, you select with a clear mind, clear innovation, passionate entrepreneur, locally relevant problem. That's how it was. You direct resources to refine and understand, support to identify. That's again the meta for you, and connect. Alright, so this is what's happening. Yeah. So it's a rising star, combines public and private resources. Okay, this is Obama's Social Innovation Fund, Cameron on Big Society, read these later, European Commission on Social Innovation, etc., etc. It's a magic concept, how to meet societal challenges, how to deal with needs that really matter to citizens and companies, how to deal with the budgetary crisis of government, produce as magic need-oriented outcomes, open process of co-creation with relevant stakeholders, game changer, it's beyond technological innovations and reallocation of public values, thereby reinventing publicness. Essence is what? Learning, trial and error, experimenting, qualitative discontinuity with the past, and there's an ecological perspective as well. Alright? The broader, what are the building blocks of drivers and barriers? The broader innovation environment. Remember, that is what's threatening Jaipur all the time. The innovation network, the process, and the diffusion and adoption process. Okay, then there is citizens and governance, etc., etc. Okay. Some questions. Is it more than a rhetoric strategy to legitimize withdrawal of government and downsizing of the welfare state? Is social innovation a form of conspicuous production? How relevant are the outcomes and whom? How are they legitimized as context matter? How to overcome innovation bias, etc., etc. Okay? Now, let's go back to the first slide, because I have limited time, so I don't want to. Second example. Mohammed Yunus. What was it? Community-based microfinance. I introduce once again Apurva Sarkar from Bandhan Bank. And I'll say only this, that Bandhan Bank has gone a step further than what Mohammed Yunus did. Where did Mohammed Yunus stop? With microfinance. He did, of course, Grameen Phone and other kinds of things. What has Chandrasekhar Ghosh of Bandhan Bank or Bandhan done more than Mohammed Yunus? Very simple question. The answer is, the question is in the answer is in the question. What has he done more? Come on guys, something you know. He created a bank. And he got permission for a bank, which means he gets the public to fund his social mission. The cost of borrowing comes down enormously because you and me are putting money in the bank and then putting it in savings bank or fixed deposits. He is deploying that. So his cost of borrowing has come down hugely, and therefore he can afford to do even more good with Bandhan, the development organization, than he was doing before. That is one huge step more than what Nobel laureate Mohammed Yunus actually did. Mohammed Yunus did other things. He extended beyond the finance ecosystem into other areas of business, so they are formidable in Bangladesh. But that's it. So therefore, if you really look at it, microfinance has been extended, as you will, if you will, with Bandhan. Bandhan also does fair trade, by the way. I don't know whether Mr. Shaukar will have time to talk about it. All right. And basically, he's taken the bank to be people who do not know banking. That's the other thing that he's done. People who would be scared to enter a bank. He's taken banking to them. What does this newspaper say? NPA 0.56%. It's a dream for a bank. After 5 years and with so much there, they don't have the bad news that Axis or any other ICICI bank or IDBI bank, and so therefore the government doesn't need to bail them out at any point in time, hopefully. Yeah, if the management stays like this, you don't need an LIC to buy into IDBI bank or into Bandhan Bank in the future, because the whole model is structured to help the poor. One thing Mr. Ghosh always says, the poor repay. It is only the rich who run away with them. Okay? I'll stop that. Over to Mr. Shaw.